Congratulations on having access to this amazing resource. This program is really about encouraging you to think about those things that you need to consider before you just accept them into your life. One of the things that you will hear people who have a little life experience under their belt say is that life turns on a dime. The smallest of decisions will set up a trajectory for your life that you may not have planned or anticipated. And one of the things that will teach you, both for your personal life and for the life of those that you love and care about, is that there are really no little decisions. The little decisions have huge implications. When you reach one of these reflection pages, it's time for you to stop the recording and reflect on what you've heard in the previous module or modules, as the case may be. Some of these may take you a week to think about. Others may take you 5 or 6 hours to think about, because there will be different ones that are more impactful into your life and into the life of your family. Be sure and reach out. Let us know how this goes and how it positively impacts your life and the life of those that you love. This month we're talking about acceptance. More importantly, considerations that we need to make about things before we just accept them into our lives. And today we're talking about things we need to think about before we accept negative things about ourselves. Things, very technical term. But I chose that word because it could mean things that are coming from within you, your self-belief, your self-talk, or it could mean things that are coming outside of you. So let's look at what we should think about before we accept those negative things. First of all, there's negative things about all of us. None of us is perfect. We all have things that we look at our life, we don't like the sound of our voice, or we don't like the way we look, or we don't like the way we do this, or the food we eat, or whatever. We all have things about ourselves that are not positive, so we call them negative. The question is, what are you doing about them? If you're fighting the same battle, and I've been in this situation, fighting the same battle today that you were fighting 10 years ago, then that might be something that you really need to look at 5 years ago, 2 years ago. Because what you want to do is figure out what those things are that you want to be different in your life, and then work on improving them. 2 years from now, you'll have that worked through, and you're going to be working at a whole new level on something else. Another thing that you want to think about is the data triangulation. If you've got one person saying, wow, you're not a very kind person, stop, reflect, think about what are other people saying to you about how kind you are. If you've got tons of people and life experiences and they're always telling you how kind you are, and you've got one person who says something negative, you might want to just, okay, I'm going to file that away, but I'm not going to rush to do anything about that right now, right? You're looking for data triangulation, and what that means is you've got a pattern of data that says something. When you find 2 to 3 people who are giving you similar feedback about yourself, and they're from different parts of your world, or they're not in the same conversations at least, that's when you want to stop and go, I might want to think about this, might want to work on this, right? But just because you have one person that says something to you that's negative about your life doesn't mean that that's something you want to rush out and address. You also want to make sure that you look at who this information is coming from, and that includes your self-talk. Is this coming from a place where you trust and believe it to be about your highest self, or is this just that negative voice inside of you that's always looking to bring you down? We all have those negative voices, by the way, but you have control of that negative voice, and you can control that and work on that and make that have much less power in your life over time. So look at where is that information coming from. And last but not least, in fact, probably the most important thing, is think about this feedback and this information in the vision and plan for your life. How do you want your life to look and feel and sound and smell? How do I want my life to smell? Yeah. Think about it. That's a conversation for another day, but yeah, how you want your life to look and feel and sound and smell. Think about your goal and where you want your life to be.
Is this feedback going to help you get there? Or is this feedback sending you down another path that's really not part of where you want to be?
And today we're focusing on receiving and accepting unflattering feedback. Now, in our last edition, we talked about accepting negative things. It could be inside you, it could be external to you, it could be behavior, it could be words, it could be all sorts of things. This is specifically focusing on feedback, right? And let's define feedback. Feedback, we're just going to believe, is something that's intended for your higher good, to serve your best purpose. And so with that in mind, that will frame a little bit of what we're going to talk about here. But let's talk about some things that we need to consider before we just accept unflattering feedback into our lives. First of all, it's important to recognize that feedback is a gift. Even when somebody's wrong, or when they're giving you incorrect feedback, or when it doesn't fit you, or they don't know your heart, they're just judging on something out here, feedback is a gift. And in a couple of seconds, you're going to see why that is. Regardless of what it is, feedback is a gift. It's important to take it that way. Because if you've ever given feedback, something that you really intend for somebody else's higher good, best purpose, best of who they are, if you're giving that, you know how difficult it is to give unflattering feedback. So think about feedback always as a gift, regardless of what that feedback is. I always ask for feedback from people who I think are going to judge me inappropriately. They don't like me, whatever it is. I always ask for that. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, I sent a formal request to someone that I work with on a in a particular situation, and she's made it abundantly clear she does not care for me. That's okay. I sent a request to her to get her feedback because I want her to tell me what her issues are with me, if she will, instead of going and telling 4 other friends of hers. I'd rather she come to me with that. And so I'm kind of laying myself out to receive that feedback. Interestingly enough, and what happens quite often, is she has not chosen to do that. But I can actually say that I've asked her for feedback, which I think is important. And one of the reasons why it's important to ask for feedback is that when you ask people for feedback, it always allows them to feel valued, right? She wants my feedback. He wants my feedback. Wow. And so when you have something that's unflattering to say to someone, how you say that obviously is critical. Um, I've shared some stories here before, but one of them I had to give some unflattering feedback to someone a few months ago, someone that I love, someone who has the power and authority to take some very important things away from me in my personal life. I had to tell that person the truth because I know that they want to be their best selves. And we can't always see who we are on the outside when we're living on the inside. So asking people for feedback always helps them to feel valued. And then there's 2 things that we get when we get unflattering feedback. You begin to see how other people are seeing you and how they're interpreting your behavior. That may not be your heart. It may not be what you want. It may not be what you think. That may all be incorrect, but you get to see it from within inside their eyes, right? So you get to see yourself through new eyes. And then you get to make the decision, what are you going to do with that, right? If you've got data triangulation of people or a group of people and you're seeing patterns that people are saying X to you, right, and it's unflattering, maybe you want to think about how you show up in that aspect of your life and what you can do to improve how they're seeing you and how they're perceiving your behavior. Feedback is always a gift. Memaw Wisdom Coaching is always here to help. You'll see in the post that accompanies this video a link, and we hope that you'll click on that and reach out to us and allow us to help you in any way we can. All right, thanks. And today we're talking about accepting bullying. We hear a lot in our world right now about bullying behavior and how inappropriate it is. And I think that's true. It is very inappropriate. But just to look at it as the bullying behavior and not to look at what's behind it, I believe is a little bit short sighted. So here are some things I want you to consider. People will do all sorts of things to cause you to fit into the model that they have of your life. Now, it may be the model that you have of your life as well, but it may not be the picture that you have of your life. So when they do that, you don't have to accept the bullying behavior, but stop and think for a little bit. What's behind that? What are they really trying to get? And does that fit into where I want my life to be and to go? Stop and reflect a little bit about that and think about that model that they're trying to get you to fit into. Bullying can be to get you to do something negative or positive. And for example, there are people that I've worked with who have addictions to different things, food, alcohol, drugs, and people around them are trying to support them and encourage their higher selves so that this person will walk away from the addiction, right? They'll be their best selves. They'll be free of this. But sometimes people see that as bullying, especially in today's political climate where that's a hot buzzword. Usually when somebody is trying to help you achieve your personal best, that's not really bullying, regardless of how it may feel. So if it feels like bullying, but you realize they're really trying to help you achieve your highest purpose and your highest good, be your best self, then make that distinction with them. Help them to understand that. And you really get two options. You really get to say, no, thank you, and walk away. Or you get to say no, but thank you. Maybe that's valuable feedback. Maybe that's something that you really do want to think about and consider. Doesn't mean you got to throw it away just because the delivery of it was so poorly done. And last but not least, there's no need for drama. Just do what you need to do. You don't have to be mean and ugly and rude. There doesn't have to be this big thing in the middle of the store. You just do what you need to do. No, thank you. Or no, but thank you. Either way, you get to just walk away and make your own decisions, right? That's something that you own. Memaw Wisdom Coaching is here to help and support you in any way we can. We'd love to hear from you. And today we're talking about accepting body shaming. Accepting body shaming. Now, whether we like it or whether we don't, sometimes we shame ourselves. We look at ourselves, we look at parts of our body, whatever that may be, and we don't like it. There's always a to something, right? There's always a reason why we don't like it. Some of those things you can do something about. Some of those things you can't do something about. Some of those things are extreme to do something about. But you want to stop and think about whether it's coming from someone else or it's coming from within you. What's the to? What's the point? What's the purpose? Will that really change who you are? Um, Earlier in my life, when I was a child, I took tetracycline because it was a common drug at the time. And I have badly stained teeth because that was a side effect of the drug that nobody knew at that point in time, right? Um, and so years ago, I had veneers put on my teeth because it was huge in allowing me to smile, right? And allowing me to show up how I felt because what I was doing was not smiling. I was keeping my mouth shut because of the stain on those teeth and my embarrassment of it. That was a hugely important thing to me. The to there, the purpose there, was so I could be freer to show up as who I am. I see people doing all sorts of surgery to change their jawline or their chin line or different parts of their body. Um, what's the purpose? What's that really going to get you? Is the benefit really about how you're going to be able to show up? Or is it really about just always changing something on the outside because you aren't working on what's on the inside? Sorry, gotta ask it. Body shaming is never okay. And body shaming doesn't always come from out here. A lot of times, body shaming comes from inside. And so you want to be aware of that negative talk. If your body is healthy, and that's what's really important, right? If your body is healthy, and that's critical, that's what you're really focusing on. Are you allowing yourself to fully be your best self, right? Are you healthy? Is your body and your emotions and your mind and your heart, are those happy places? No one can put this on you if you don't allow them that power. I've seen so many people who have body shaming going on in their lives that they allow, and they decide they have bird legs or fat ankles or whatever. Well, change your clothing, right? You don't have to accept that. So what if you have bird legs? So what if you have fat ankles? You don't have to like them, right? You don't have to like any of that, but you also don't have to accept it in your life. Nobody has the power to put that on you unless you give them that power. They just really don't. Today, we're talking about accepting medical advice. You know, in today's world, we get medical advice from YouTube, we get it from Facebook, we get it from our friends and family, we get it from actual medical professionals. But what we know is there's a lot of different ways to think about medical advice and how we want to address the things within our body. One of the things that I'm most amazed about is inoculation, shots, or pharmaceuticals, medicine, big pharma, pharmaceuticals. Um, it's amazing to me that when we have inoculations or when we take pharmaceuticals in today's world, it's considered a political statement, or it's considered a political statement if we don't take them. It's amazing to me. My belief is you need to find out what's best for you. What's going to help you accomplish your highest good and be your best self. And that's what you need to do. Um, I'm not so interested in giving in to political pressure to do or not to do any of these things, because I have to decide what's best for my body. And by the way, if you don't know your body, if you don't know how it reacts to things, if you don't know how stress impacts you, if you don't know your body, that's job one. Figure out your body and how it works and figure out what's best for it, because you need to be the advocate for your medical advice. There's also a whole lot now out about Eastern medicine or holistic medical practices that don't necessarily take the direction of Western medicine. In fact, a lot of times they're diametrically opposed. Again, you need to know your body. You need to know what's right for you. You may have a mixture of Eastern medicine, holistic medicine, and Western medicine that's part of your makeup. I do. Part of my practice, I include things from all of those areas. And I make the best decision I can based on the information that I can find and the sources of information that I get that from. I always love people who are ready to tell me. I had a doctor a few months ago. My regular doctor was out, and I had to see someone else. And this person was very much like, you need to do this. I think you should. You have to do this today. And I was like, yeah, I thank you. I'm probably not going to do that today. But it always intrigues me, even with medical professionals, how, well, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to handle this. You need to know your body. I have a dear, dear friend who I love better than anything who was diagnosed with cancer over a year ago. And I had done quite a bit of research on the particular area, and I shared what I had with her. She made a different decision. She looked at the research that I shared with her, she looked at the videos, and then she made a different decisions. But I love her. I love her dearly. I want her to do what's right for her. I don't want her to do what I think is right for me because I'm different. So whenever people make decisions that may not be the decisions you'll make, that's okay. You want to love and support them because what they don't need if their body is unhealthy is stress brought on by people around them or internal dialogue. So as much as you can, you want to support those people around you when they make the decisions that they make, and they need to support you when you make the decisions that you make. Today we're going to talk about things to consider before we accept people into our lives. You know, a lot of times when we accept people, we think that they're coming into our lives for the long haul, right? But I will tell you, I'm amazed by some people who are making this long haul journey with me that I really didn't think would. And I'm equally amazed by people that I thought were coming in for the long haul and they were only here for a season or two, or maybe one season in this year, and 8 years later, another season. They just aren't a part of my journey for the long haul. And so when we meet those people and when we allow them into our lives, we don't really know what their role is going to be, and they don't know what our role is going to be in their life. I say that because it's okay to allow people to fall out of your life. There doesn't have to be this big fight. There doesn't have to be this big drama. You don't have to have all this stuff going on. You can just allow them to fall out of your life. And the way you do that is just by ending how you cultivate the relationship. If you're used to texting them on a regular basis, or if you're used to calling them regularly, or whatever it is you do, right? If you just stop doing those things that cultivate the relationship, a lot of the time, people will just fall out of your life because they won't pick it up. They won't take the work, take the effort and the time to cultivate the relationship on their own. When might you do that? Well, you might do that when you find that they're going on a path that really is not something you want in your life. You're not judging their life. They get to live their life the way they choose. But that's just not something you want in your life. And that's okay. You get to make those decisions and you get to decide, I really don't want this in my life. Again, you don't have to tell them that. It's just part of that inward dialogue that you have, that reflection that you do, thinking about your life and the people in it. Um, as I mentioned earlier, I'm amazed by the people who are making the long haul with me. And some of those people I talk to for 3 or 4 months every week. And then we may not talk for a year. And then one of us will reach out and pick it up and go, hey, I just realized we haven't connected. Let's connect. Let's get back together. I've had a lot of that, and a lot of the people that I'm working with have had a lot of that during COVID, right? We've just kind of fallen out of sync with others that are taking that long haul with us. And so somebody picks that relationship up and tries to cultivate that again. And when you find that both parties are wanting to cultivate that, great. If you're finding that one of the parties is not trying to cultivate that, then that's a hint. I have a dear girlfriend, and she means the world to me. Um, but she's gone through some things, and she's really wanted her distance. And she is one of those people that we're making the long haul together. But during this season of her life, she's just needed to be doing her own thing without the rest of us around, without anyone around really. She's needed that time. And so we've given that to her because that's what she needed. And last but not least, when you're going through that reflection, when you're thinking about those relationships, I want to encourage you to journal or document about those. What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? Why is this feeling stressed, this relationship feeling stressed right now? Um, because that will really help you to identify some of that. And again, it will allow you to make better decisions. Also, you may very well want to come back to that 6, 8 years from now when they cross your path again or you cross their path again and they're different and you're different, right? Because life changes us. Um, and you may want to look back and determine why did I let this relationship go at the time? How did we lose that regular connectivity? And having that journaled or documented somewhere is really, really helpful. Memaw Wisdom Coaching is here to help you and support you. There's a link in the post associated with this video that will help you get access to us. We look forward to hearing from you. Today we're talking about things we need to consider before we accept practices or behaviors into our life. And this is really important. I remember when I was a kid, my mom and grandmother always used to say to me, if other people jump off the roof, are you going to do it too? Well, sometimes I would have, but that's another conversation. And the purpose, I think, of that little quote is to make me stop and think. What about this is good behavior? What about this is positive practice? What about this fits into my life instead of just doing it because the people around me do it? You know, there's research, pretty consistent research, that says that your behavior, your income, your body size is going to be very similar to the 5 closest people around you. They impact your behavior, they impact your practices, how you eat, where you eat, what you say, what you drink, how you behave. Those 5 people are critical. So it's important to me periodically to back up and say, okay, who are those 5 people? And sometimes there's 7 and sometimes there's 3, right? But who are those people? And are they really the person I want to be most like? Because if they're not, then I need to back up from that and I need to reevaluate that. Is their thinking the kind of thinking I want to adopt? Are they spending 20 hours a week watching Netflix or on social media? Or are they being negative in those situations? Are they being haters on social media, right? What are they doing? What is their behavior? What are their practices? For me, because I'm a person of faith, are they people of faith? Do they believe in a higher power? Do they believe in God? What about their life causes me to think that that's true about them? Not that everyone in my life does, but certainly that's something I want to consider for me. You'll find those things that you want to consider for yourself. And it's okay to try out people's practices and their behaviors, but make sure that it fits the life you want, the life you're going for, the life you're trying to live, where you're trying to get. Make sure it fits with your direction and your path. Don't just accept what other people do because they do it. That's their call. But you need to stop and think about what behaviors and practices you're accepting into your life and whether or not they're really going to help you be who you want to be. It's critical. And today we're talking about accepting the perceptions of others. We've talked about accepting negative things, which could have been a variety of things, just a whole gamut, big old barrel, if you will, of opportunity. We've talked about accepting feedback, and we've talked about that being something that is intended for your higher good, for your higher purpose. But this is about really accepting the perceptions of others. And I think this is the thing that we do the easiest of the three. We accept the perceptions of others. I got together with one of my dear girlfriends yesterday. I hadn't seen her in a few months, and um, we were catching up, right? We were both telling our stories and catching up as we were walking, and I just love her dearly, and she's one of those dear, dear people that's making the lifelong journey with me. But when we're in those situations, it's easy to accept the perceptions of others, their beliefs, right? You're just kind of talking and chatting. Nobody's trying to get anybody else to see something a different way. But like, well, she's just a dummy. Oh my God, he's such an idiot. Those kinds of things. Oh man, that's such a stupid political perception. Oh my God, why would you go to that medical, clinic? Whatever it is, why would you listen to those people help you with finances? They're idiots. Whatever those perceptions are, right? We take those in, and a lot of times we accept them when we shouldn't. Now, I also asked her yesterday for the name of a garage door company because her son and she both have had garage door issues yesterday, and I wanted their perception on a company that they had both used and both recommend. They have experience with them. I don't. I'm looking for a garage door company. That makes sense. But just to accept the perceptions of people in our conversation is something we do really, really easily because it's tied to our emotions and all sorts of other things. And sometimes those perceptions aren't what we want it to be. It's okay to try it on for size. It's okay to stop and think about it and check it out, right? It could be accurate. He might be an idiot. He might be, right? So how far do I allow him into my life, for example? But you want to hold on to those things that really make you a better person and fit into the life that you're working to achieve. And for some of us, negative things like, he's an idiot, probably aren't things we want to hold on to. I know in my head, when I hear those kinds of things, I try to reframe them into language that I want to be more purposeful in using. Okay, he's not somebody I really want to invite into my life. Or when I get that opportunity, I want to take very small steps with him, right? Because somebody that I trust has this experience with him. Doesn't mean I'm going to have that same experience. Doesn't mean I judge him that way. Doesn't mean I accept that perception. It means I think about that, right? And I consider it. But you don't want to just accept the perceptions of others because we all get things wrong. I've told people across the years things that I believe to be true that were later proven not to be true. If you look at the eyewitness research about eyewitnesses who see people commit crimes, a lot of times that's incorrect. They're not trying to be wrong. That's their perception, but a lot of times it's incorrect. A lot of information on the web that you can find about that. But again, you want to stop and consider these things before you just accept those perceptions into your life and let it become part of who you are, your makeup, and your life. Today, we're going to talk about accepting who you reach out to. We all have times in our life where we need to share our story, or we're hurt, or we need somebody to talk to. Who we reach out to at those times is critical because we're highly vulnerable. And so thinking about and really considering cautiously and carefully who we reach out to is very, very important because in that moment, they are going to have a lot of power in our lives. Unsolicited advice may be about as much value as what you pay for it, right? People are always wanting to tell you what you ought to do and what you ought to think and how you ought to do things. But you want to be really cautious when you reach out to people for feedback or to hear your story, especially when you're in those vulnerable times. Um, who will be totally honest with you even if it hurts? It is a huge risk, in my experience, to love someone enough to be honest with them. But there comes a time, at least for me, when I can't just be the feel good person, right? There comes a time for me when people will reach out to me and ask me for things, about things, and I have to tell them my version of the truth based on what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing and what I'm experiencing. And sometimes that's not pretty. But when I'm in those vulnerable spots, I want to reach out to somebody who will be honest with me. I don't just want a feel good friend because I don't want to lose the ground and all the work I've already done to improve myself and get myself to this point. It may not be a great point, but man, I've worked hard to get here, okay? And I don't want to regress. I don't want to go backwards. And so I want somebody who's going to be really honest with me. And sometimes I have to stop and think about, how will this person deliver this news? And do I have the emotional fortitude and the emotional budget right now to hear it from this person? Because I know, for example, they're going to be painfully honest. And I do want them to be honest, but I also want to make sure that they know who I am. There are people in my life who I get to reach out to who will be painfully honest with me. But when I get off the phone or out of the conversation with them, whatever that is, the venue is, I believe I can accomplish what I need to accomplish because they believe in me. They believe in me enough to tell me the truth. They believe in me enough to do it with empathy. And they believe in me enough to encourage me to take the next steps that I need to take. That's a dynamic duo right there. Or that's not duo, that's trio. That's an amazing trio right there to get someone who can give me those three things. And so I want to encourage you when you find yourself in your next vulnerable spot to think about who will be really, really honest with me no matter what. Who will help me to move forward and help me to be motivated, and who will help me to know who I really am and help me to come away with making those decisions instead of just taking from what they're telling me. That's a valuable friend right there. Memaw Wisdom Coaching would like to be that valuable friend in your life who can provide you that amazing trio of options. Today we're talking about things we need to consider and think about before we accept advice into our lives. Last time we talked about people we should reach out to when we're vulnerable. Who are those people? What are the characteristics that we're looking for? But even people who love us can be wrong. They can be wrong with the greatest heart toward us, but they can be wrong. And so today we want to talk about, how do we know what advice we accept and what advice we don't accept? Be careful when you ask for people's advice. You want to think carefully about, and this goes back to our last episode, you want to be careful and think about the people that you solicit advice from, because everybody's got free advice. But when you reach out to somebody, you want to go back and look at that previous episode and make sure you're reaching out to the right people. You also get to say, I'll consider this and I'll look at how it impacts my life and how appropriate it'll be for me. You get that. In fact, not only do you get that, I'm going to suggest that you have to take that. You don't have to, just because somebody loves you, accept what they say in this moment and apply it to your life immediately. Most of us don't have that problem with immediately applying it. We have to think about it. We have to figure out how we apply it. But my point here is, you want to think about what they've said before you start implementing it and before you start putting it into practice. Because parts of it could really resonate with you, right? They could really be like, oh my God, I've never even thought about it that way. Of course.
Why don't I know that about myself? And parts of it may not be correct. So you have to filter that. You have to reflect on it and make sure that you're accepting the advice and implementing and working with the advice that's really going to help you get to where you need to be. And just because you ask for advice doesn't mean you have to take it. I ask for feedback. That was a previous episode, and I regularly ask people for feedback. But just because they give it to me doesn't mean I have to use it. I need to take it. I need to reflect on it. I need to think about it. I need to understand their perception that caused them to tell me that. But I have to make the decision it's right for my life or not. Here's the trap you don't want to fall into. You don't want to fall into the trap of immediately changing something just because somebody that you love and that loves you told you that. That's usually not the problem we have. Typically, the problem we have is we never do anything with it. We think about it. We know it's probably right. I probably do need to do that. I probably need to quit reaching out to these people and asking them for advice because they're not the people I want to be like. They're not the people I want to think like. They don't live their life like I want to live mine. I'm a person of faith, and one of the things I heard years and years ago was, why do you always get on the phone and call somebody else? Why isn't your first act when you need help? Why isn't your first act to go to God? For me, that was really impactful because I was regularly on the phone calling somebody, but they don't know me the way I need to be known in those moments. And so that's been a really powerful thing in my life. But there are still times when I have dear friends around me and I need to reach out and say, what do you think? Starting Memaw Wisdom Coaching was a big deal. And I reached out to different friends of mine from different realms of life and said, what do you think? And are you willing to support me as I go down this path? Because I'm going to need you to hold me accountable and keep me on track with the goals that I've set out here for this business. And they have, and I am grateful for their support and their wisdom. And today we're talking about accepting food. Accepting food? Why would you not accept food? Well, there's actually a few good reasons for that. There's a lot of research and a lot of health impacts from our standard American diet. It's been labeled sad because most of the research shows that it is. Processed food, sugars and flours, things out of cans and boxes and bags, right? And they can fill us up, but they don't nourish our bodies. And so one of the things I want to encourage you to think about when you accept food into your diet is, what are you really accepting? Read the label. Read the ingredients. And if you can't say them, or there are all sorts of words that you don't even know what they mean, then you might want to rethink whether or not you accept this food into your diet. We know that all these processed foods, including sugar and flour, coconut flour, almond flour, regular flour, bread flour, real sugar, fake sugar, all of these things are processed and they seriously affect your brain. Now, for some of us, and I'm one of those, that sugar and flour, processed sugar and flour, affects my brain really, really badly. It's very obvious to me. I become not the best version of myself when I have that stuff in my diet. And the problem is, I love it. I love it. So why would I not want to make an amazing chocolate chip chocolate cake with chocolate ganache? Okay, I have to quit this. It's all wonderful. right? It's great, but it doesn't help my body be healthier or more clearly nourished. It doesn't help my brain, and it doesn't help my emotions or my heart be the best version of me. In fact, it all acts in a way counter to that best version of me. Now, I'm a Southern girl, and I love me some meat, okay? I would eat bacon every day. Well, I'd have bacon secondly. First of all, I'd have beef every day. I love me some steak and hamburger and chicken, and I'm a meat girl. But the older I get, the less my body um, accepts those kinds of products the way I need my body to accept them. And so I've had to, at times, go to eating lentils for my protein or finding other sources of healthy protein because those things don't work for me. Um, and it's not something I necessarily like, but it is something I have to do because it's more important to me that my body and my brain and my heart are nourished and healthy than it is that I get to eat what I want, which is not always easy for me to live by, but it's true. And when I go to the grocery store, and you hear this when you talk to medical professionals or people who deal a lot with food, instead of walking the aisles, walk the exterior of the grocery store. You'll find all sorts of your produce and your healthier things there. You'll also find some animal products there, milk, other things. There are a lot of us that have a lot of allergies to those things. They don't impact our body positively. So make sure that you're spending a lot of time in the produce section of your grocery store and getting those foods into your body that are really healthy. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. You have to make that decision for yourself. But man, I want you to be healthy. I want you to be happy. And it's hard to be happy when your body is not healthy. And today we're going to talk about accepting debt. But we're going to talk about it a little bit differently than how you may typically think about accepting debt. Debt can be in two ways. It can be emotional debt or it can be fiscal, financial debt, right? Most of us are familiar with having debt in our finances. You buy a house, you're going to have debt. You buy a new car, you're probably going to have some debt. But there's also emotional debt. And sometimes there are people among us who are seeking, we like to be in debt to others, emotionally or financially, or we like for others to be in debt to us. And I want to help you think about this for just a minute. I'm going to suggest that either one of those, the like to be in debt or the like for others to be in debt to us, financially or emotionally, is probably an unhealthy end of a spectrum, either end of that. I love doing for people that I love. I love being able to pick up the check when we go out to eat. I love that. I love being able to take care of the people that I love and value in my life. Sometimes I can pick up the check and sometimes I can't. I just can't do it. There are times when I want to go buy a new car, but I can't do it. Like right now, I can't. That's just not an option for me right now. Financially, I don't have the resources to go buy a new car. Sure, I can go accrue the debt, but I don't have a plan for working with the debt. It's okay to accrue debt, but you definitely want to have a plan for how you're going to address it, whether it's financial or emotional. How are you going to address it? If you live in that debt mindset or that, ooh, they owe me mindset, whether it's money or emotions, again, you're on a pretty dangerous little teeter-totter there. You remember teeter-totters when you were kids? Both ends of that are pretty dangerous places to be. When I give money or emotional support to people, I want to make sure that I do that freely. Not because I like being in debt to them or because I like them being in debt for me, but because I want to do for them. I'm choosing to do for them. And if they pay it back, great. And if they don't, then they don't, because that's life sometimes. Now I'll learn from that, right? And I may not give you $50 if you still owe me twice from two previous $20 that I've given you, right? I may not have $50 to give you this time, but it's okay to accrue debt. It's okay to buy things on credit. What you really want to think about is your budget, whether it's your financial budget or your emotional budget. There are times with people in my life that before I get into a full-blown catch up with them or event with them, I want to stop and think about, okay, this is going to be emotionally taxing. And do I have what I need to walk to end this and be proud of how I handled it today? Let's take a stock of my emotional current state. Am I going to be okay to do this? Because I'm going to leave feeling depleted, and I need to make sure I have something to deplete from, right? If my emotional budget is already empty, I don't have any more to give you today. So I'm going to behave in a way that I might not be proud of. So I want to make sure that maybe we reschedule for today. And that's okay. But you do have emotional budget. You do have a financial budget. And I know most financial institutions, people who help people with their credit, will talk about having a budget and living within your budget. You and I both know what happens when we don't live within our emotional budget or our financial budget. We get ourselves into trouble. So thinking about those budgets, having those budgets in place, using those budgets, they're there to use. So it's okay to accrue debt, and it's okay to pay off debt, have no debt. Both of those are okay. But you want to make sure you know what your resources are and that you're going to use them appropriately and effectively for where you want to be in your life.